So energy healing is basically using the energy of the body and our subconscious mind to find these little, I call them like energy burrs. You know those burrs that you get on your socks when you walk through a field, they kind of stick to your socks. Well, that's how I see these negative energies that are kind of stored in our body. And what I do is I help my clients to find those burrs and then release those burrs so that that frees up more space in the body and in the mind to allow them to do more of the conscious work.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I am the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions, Mental Health Counseling and Behavioral Health Counseling in Iowa.
Hello, everybody. I am Karel, your guest host today, and I am an expert hypnotherapist, storyteller, and mentor, and I'm based out of Winnipeg, and I'm excited for today's conversation.
And I'm Krista Hunt. I am the vice president at Heart and Solutions in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are a podcast designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Our guest today is Tina Eichenberg, and we're excited to hear from Tina because we talk a lot about counseling, we talk about life coaching, but we don't always talk about self-care coaches. We also don't talk as much about energy healing on this show. So we're excited to talk to Tanya today. Tanya is a certified life and self-care coach. She is passionate about helping women to release emotional baggage and to put those energies. It takes a lot of energy to process through our emotions all the time, to move forward in our life when we have these things bringing us down energy wise. And so Tanya really helps those clients to redirect that energy towards their strength, towards their freedom, and towards their happiness. So welcome, Tanya. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
We are excited as well. So can you tell us about what is energy healing? What should we know about energy healing?
So energy healing is basically using the energy of the body and our subconscious mind to find these little, I call them like energy burrs. You know those burrs that you get on your socks when you walk through a field, they kind of stick to your socks. Well, that's how I see these negative energies that are kind of stored in our body. And what I do is I help my clients to find those burrs and then release those burrs so that that frees up more space in the body and in the mind to allow them to do more of the conscious work.
Okay, and I see that you mentioned that you had a long-term fight against depression and anxiety, and talk therapy wasn't really working, and that's how you got into this. Had you heard of energy healing before, or how did you kind of discover this?
My extent to energy healing before I really dived into it was like The Secret. Was 2011 that was introduced to me, and so I knew I had some awareness of like how my thoughts create things and that kind of thing. But that was about the extent of it. I did some acupuncture, but this kind of energy healing I had never heard of, I had never experienced until I really needed something that was going to, for me, get rid of how I was feeling. And this was what was that catalyst to be able to do that.
When you say get rid of those feelings that you were feeling, could you dive a little bit more into that? What do you mean by that?
So for me, it was the heaviness and the I can only explain it as my body just holding on to so much stuff. It was holding on to things that I had seen as a child, things that I had heard as a child, and was never able to process. And I was never taught how to process these things because my parents didn't know how to process these things. Um, and so I would consistently keep stuffing them down and stuffing them down. And my mom, who is diagnosed as being bipolar, she had her own stuff to deal with. And then my dad, who was an extremely quiet person, he hardly ever talked, hardly ever showed much emotion. But when he did, it was because he was fed up. Like he just could not be quiet any longer. And so we had just these two spectrums going on in the house. My mom had all of the emotions and my dad had none. And so being 7, 8 years old, when I started to notice all of this stuff, I had no idea what to do. And so in order to keep myself safe, I just stuffed everything down and walked on eggshells everywhere. And
Mm.
so I was just holding on to it for so long that even through the years going to therapist with my mom and talking, you talk with your friends and you talk to teachers and these things, I never really understood that that's where all of that stuff came from. I knew there were parts of my childhood that I didn't like, that were uncomfortable. I wasn't physically abused, I wasn't sexually abused or anything like that, but there was a lot of yelling and chaos going around. And so when we think of where the anxiety and the depression comes from, my mind, because that's all I knew at the time, 5 years ago, was it came from those areas. I didn't understand that it could have come just from listening to my parents fighting all the time or them fighting with my older siblings. And I didn't figure that out until I got into this area of my life and just really started to understand that the energy aspect of it.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, and I'm sure many of the audience listeners can also relate to just experiences and just, the life's complexities is what I call
Right.
it. What was the thing for you, and maybe for someone that's listening, what is the thing that has them moving more, gravitating more towards energy healing as opposed to conventional therapy?
They don't want to talk about their experiences, or they can't articulate it. For me, it was I couldn't articulate it. It wasn't it, I knew, when I was asked, why do you think you feel this way? Or how are you feeling? It was like I really didn't understand how I was feeling because I was never taught what feelings were. Growing up, I had mad, I had sad, um, I had happy, right? But like, there's like core 4 or 5 emotions that I could like articulate how I was feeling, not understanding that I was also feeling shame, I was feeling guilt, I was feeling unworthy. Those emotions I didn't understand that I was having. And so I couldn't articulate to somebody what I was feeling because I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those, pre-verbal experiences that we have, when they happen, our body processes and metabolizes that, or doesn't process and metabolize it the same way that it's processing and metabolizing milk or formula at that time.
Right.
It does not have the ability yet to, or our brain does not have the ability yet to bring that into our conscious mind and to verbalize either to ourselves. And we have no context for what is happening at all. So right now, if I see two people arguing in a grocery store over the last grapefruit, my brain has context for that, right? I've seen people argue before, nobody died, right? All of these things I have context for. Am I safe or am I not safe? And when those happen pre-verbally, we have no context for am I safe or am I not safe? And so all we feel is there is a threat and I don't understand it. And so it's even more threatening to me. And our bodies hold on to that.
Mhm.
Um, and so, absolutely, with these kinds of experiences that are pre-verbal, the idea of bringing that into our consciousness, our top consciousness, and trying to verbalize that we're not able. We're talking two entirely different languages,
Right.
and trying to bring them through. So, things like dreams and things like uh, sand tray and art therapies and energy healing really help us to bring a language to that, and give those experiences and feelings that we were having at the time a voice. And it might not be a voice that's saying words, but it
Right.
is a voice and a means of communicating. So I think that that is so important and necessary, because so many people do go to traditional talk therapy and they go, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know. So and I thank you for sharing your own personal experience too, because the idea of energy bursts, I had not heard that term before, but it makes so much sense, right? Those are the sticking points
Yeah.
for sounds. So in your situation, what were those kinds of bursts that were coming up in your day-to-day life, that were causing challenges for you?
Well, because I was so good at stuffing things down, nobody knew that I was suffering with anxiety and depression. I call it high functioning anxiety and depression because I worked, I went to work, I did my thing, but then, the day might go along and somebody at work might, criticize a report or something, and I would break down into tears and just be a blubbering idiot for for a couple of hours. Or my husband would say something and it would just hit a nerve. It would just trigger something and I would get mad and I would have to walk away. um but I would also think that, people were talking about me behind my back when they weren't, or they didn't like me, or they didn't want to spend time with me, including, my kids and my family. I just didn't think that I was worth being around. And a lot of that stemmed from just being so isolated, I think, as a kid, trying to just get away from all the stuff. Um, you know, it, and it would just show up in different places, but it was usually just something small that would trigger it. That seemed like it was, it isn't something that somebody would get upset about, but it was just that one little thing that broke the camel's back. And that was just it was on constant loop. Like once a week at least, I would cry. And it was just frustrating. And I just did not want to live in that space anymore.
And I know you did eventually try counseling, even though it wasn't maybe the best experience. Can you talk about that process of finally deciding to try it and then how that went and maybe what kind of pushed you away from trying counseling in the future?
Absolutely. So this was right around 2018, 2019. Everything was really spectacular on the outside in our life. My husband and I have been married for right now 28 years. We have three grown children. And in 2018, our oldest, were graduating from college, and our twins were graduating from high school. We also bought our forever home off of the Chesapeake Bay. So it was all really wonderful. But by middle of 2019, I was just like, because I didn't have the kids to keep me occupied anymore, my anxiety and depression was like, hey, can you work with us now? Like, we're here. We want to be talked to. Um, and so I tried to deal with it myself. I tried meditation, journaling, I was trying to, supplements, just trying to do everything myself. And I started self-medicating and started drinking and smoking again. And that kind of kept everything at bay for a little while. But then in early 2020, right as COVID was starting to shut down, I was like, either I need to get some help or I'm going to end up doing something that's going to hurt myself. I had thought about driving my van into a telephone pole just so I could have a few days to try to figure things out. Um, luckily I was aware enough to not do that and to seek help. So during COVID, everything was online. And so I had an appointment with a doctor for medication. It was about 15 minutes long. He asked what I had been on prior to that because I'd been on and off antidepressants in the past. I told him what I was on. He asked me what worked, and I told him I think this one worked okay. He said, okay, well, let's just try that. Sent in the prescription, and that was really it. There wasn't a whole, he asked, if I had ever thought about hurting myself. And honestly, I didn't know him well enough to share that information. I didn't know what would happen if I had shared that information, right? My mind was saying, am I going to be someone going to come to my home and take me to, psychiatric ward? I didn't know. And so I just didn't share that information. I didn't feel safe enough to share that with someone I had only met for 15 minutes. But I knew well enough that I needed a talk therapist. I needed to try to figure out what was going on. And so I found someone online, read her bio, thought that she seemed very capable. And she absolutely was. She absolutely was. The appointments they were once a week, lasted about 45 minutes. And so we talked for the first 10 or 15 minutes about what was going on in the week. And then we'd start going into other things. And again, I was just rehashing everything that I had talked about with other therapists. And then she suggested CBT training and suggested that I download this app and follow what the app says, and the app will help me to do it. But I just was not in that frame of mind to start learning an app. I really needed somebody to kind of hold my hand and help guide me through all of this. And after about 6 to 8 weeks on the medication and therapy, I went back to the doctor and told him, I was like, look, while I'm not having as many crying spells, I'm not feeling as anxious. I'm not feeling happy either. Like I'm just numb. And he's like, well, maybe we need to up your medication. And because I had been on this roller coaster before, I was like, I can't. I can't keep waiting for things to get better. I need something. And at this point I was in tears and I was just crying at my desk. I was like, I need something to get rid of how I'm feeling. I don't want to survive with it anymore. I don't want to have to just manage it. I want to thrive. I want to enjoy the life that I have the way I have it. I just needed something different. And so that's when I went to Google and looked for holistic emotional healing and found this energy healing modality. And when I started the certification, that's when I got the hand holding. That's when I got the customized protocol that I needed in order to get rid of what was holding me back for so long.
I want to say, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I know it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage to even share it the way that you have. I think the question that's coming to me is, one, it's a two-parter. What would have made those conventional experiences a better experience for you? As well as two, what is it about the hand holding that you think did it for you?
Repeat the first question again.
I was hoping you didn't do that. So the
What
first
would
question
make
is,
it
what is it
better?
about conventional therapy? What would have had that experience be a better experience for you? And secondly, the hand holding that you receive, what is it about the hand holding that made this experience what it was for you?
You know, after doing so much healing over the last 4 years, um, I don't know what would have made that experience better. I don't think I was just in the state of mind where I could understand what my trauma was. because I couldn't articulate what my trauma was. And the therapist was absolutely wonderful. She absolutely did try. I think she absolutely did try. I don't know if we were just not the right fit for each other, if she just wasn't asking the questions in a way that I understood them so that I could answer them. So she had a better there are so many different factors that played into that. But I think the biggest one was um I had seen my mom be in therapy in my entire life. And with that being said, my mom was in therapy my entire life. For me, it didn't look like it worked because she had different therapists, but that's because we lived in different places. But the therapy that she was a part of did not bring me the mom that I thought I needed. And so I think I had part of that resistance to it, as that subconscious resistance to it, because I hadn't seen it work before. And then the hand holding, I think because I didn't have it when I was little. I didn't have somebody to show me that this is how you can heal. This is how you can live through life and thrive and enjoy it just as you have it. Enjoy the good, enjoy the bad. Emotions are really they're messages that our body is sending us saying, look, there's something you need to pay attention to, whether it's joy or excitement or happiness, or it's sadness or worry or anger. Those messages are there for a reason, and we're supposed to be able to process them and be aware of them and understand why we're having them. But the problem is most of our parents don't understand how to have their emotions or how to talk to us about having our emotions. I didn't have that skill until just a couple of years ago. So my kids, even though they're 28 and the twins are 25, they're now still learning how to process their own emotions through how they see me now process, because I wasn't able to teach them. I mean, I think I had better resources than my parents did. But even if somebody had handed me the golden Bible of emotional regulation when my oldest was born, I wasn't in the capacity to take on that knowledge because of all the trauma I had previously. I had to clear out some of this gunk so that I had the capacity, so my body had the capacity to do the conscious work, to do the self-care work. And for me, talk therapy just didn't access those parts of me that needed to heal so that I could continue on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cognitive behavioral therapy is about using our cognitive brain, and these kinds of preverbal traumas are not that we can't use our cognitive brain on that. It's also cognitive behavioral therapy is about behavioral modification. Well, when we've got a trauma response that allows us to be a highly productive members of society while we're still internalizing all of these feelings and situations, then we're really good at behavioral change already. We've already molded ourselves to the behaviors that are socially acceptable. We've already molded ourselves to the behaviors. We've already learned how to mask everything so that we can be accepted in society, so we can be successful and we can get our needs met. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that that CBT would not have helped the triggers that you were coming to counseling for, because of the cognition part and because of the behavioral part. You're already good at that. You can already, right? We, as a trauma response, we morph ourselves into whatever we need to be for that situation, for that person, to get our needs met and to stay safe.
Yep.
And so we're already good at that. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. The energy part of it, it's a totally different language. And
It's hard. It's really hard to see how things work when you can't see it.
that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. Now The Secret, you had mentioned the book and the movie The Secret. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, is it? It
I
was
don't
always
know.
like it was like Netflix specific, the movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still on there. I haven't seen it in a long time, but honestly, that was like one of my first introductions as well. Krista and I had a mutual coworker who was very into it, and we learned a lot about it. Um, and so for anybody who's not aware of it, The Secret is about energy and kind of manifesting the things around us and being intentional about the energy that we're putting out into the world, and being intentional about the energy that we are accepting
Mhm.
into our own self and being. And I tell this when I tell this story, people always go, what is wrong with you?
I
But
won't.
yeah, I don't think you will. So I love talking about it because um so I see behind you you've got all of the chakras.
Yep.
And in 2000, gosh, I don't even know what year it was, but 2015, Krista and I went to New York, and I was had been trying for a baby for 4 years, and it just felt like this was not happening for me. And we found this like psychic place, and it said $5 psychic readings. Let's go in and try. We're like, okay, whatever, $5. We're in Times Square. What else can you do for $5 in Times Square? So we go and we do it. And the person said to me, okay, what's your wish? What is your deepest wish? And I said, to have a baby. And they said, your energy is so blocked. Your what's the
Crown.
top?
Your
Crown.
crown.
Crown. They said there's so many blessings like waiting to enter your self.
Energy. Yep.
Yeah, your energy. And there's so many like come and they're just bouncing off you because they cannot,
Can't get in.
like, you can't accept them right now. You've got this block there. You're not able to accept them. They said your daughter's waiting for you. Like she's been waiting and cannot be accepted by your current energy. You gotta work on that, right? So and I'm like, I'll do anything, right? I'm like, I don't care what it takes. I'll do anything. Give me baby. And so and so I did, some of those things. I did the work. I did what they said to do, and it worked. And then, as I'm looking at it through a therapeutic theory lens, right? This is my field, and so I'm going, what was that? Was that a fluke? Like what's happening? Because it goes so against, the things that I've been trained to
Right.
think about in the science of psychology. So I'm going, what was that? And really what it came down to for me at the end of going through what was that there were these things that I could not reason my way out of. I could not think my way out of these things. Thinking becomes a coping strategy for so many of us. And a coping strategy is, what do I turn to for comfort when I need to solve a problem, or I need to, resolve some feeling that I'm having. And thinking becomes a coping strategy, and I couldn't use that to resolve what was going on within me. And energy work did it. So I deeply respect the work that you do because I believe it. I know that like it did help me. And absolutely CBT, like, because I can reason my way through a lot of things. There's a lot of things in life that we can help with, adjusting our cognitions, adjusting our reasoning, adjusting our thinking, adjusting our behaviors. There are a ton of things. But there are a ton of things that we can't reason our way
Yeah.
out of. And I think that's exactly where what you're doing comes in.
Yeah.
So, what are those steps? What does that look like to go through that energy healing process with you?
Oh gosh, this is where people are usually like, I really don't understand how this works. You really can't bring logic into energy healing. There are so many different ways and modalities to do it. And so how I started was with a modality called the emotion code. And it's a technique of using muscle testing or kinesiology to get in tune with yourself or with your client or your family member, whoever you're helping, and using muscle testing to tap into their subconscious to find these trapped emotions or these limiting beliefs or idea allergies, these all these different things that our subconscious labels these energies, and finding those energies. And then sometimes it's as simple as just let's just release that energy. Sometimes it's just the conscious mind needs to know that those energies are there, and we're just going to release that energy. We're not necessarily releasing the belief. We're not necessarily releasing that exact emotion. It's the vibration of that energy that we're releasing. And so then what that does is it helps to, again, go back and do the conscious work, which is why I'm such an advocate for self-care, because having that other part, so that you're not continuing to just take on more emotions and stuff those down and other stuff. Um but by tapping into my clients and finding these things and then clearing them, sometimes there's are layers underneath of them. So um there might be a negative belief of I'm not enough. But underneath of that negative belief, you've got inherited energies, maybe from your parents that were passed down during conception, or you have some ancestral energies, or you have stuff from past lives that you brought in. If with coming into new lives, we bring in other lessons that maybe we didn't finish up in that lesson in that lifetime. And so it can be very detailed. Sometimes when we have to get rid of some of these energies, get rid of these burrs. And then with intention, with love, with gratitude, I always tell my clients, find a way to be thankful for holding on to those energies for so long, because it made you who you are today. It gave you lessons that you might not have gotten otherwise. And so we always release these energies with love and gratitude, transmuting them into a more positive energy, because I don't want to put more negative stuff out there. And so through that process, I'm teaching my clients to, you see, oh, you can't see my Care Bear, to have a Care Bear stare when they're transmuting these energies out. Because the more love, the more kindness, the more gratitude that we put out energetically, the better everything around us is going to be.
Interesting. And I see you do discovery calls and healing sessions. What are the difference between them, and what is a discovery call?
So a discovery call is to find out if we resonate as a team. I am not going to just work with anybody. I don't just answer. I'm not a psychic, so I'm not going to work with somebody who wants to know when they're going to have a baby, or when they're going to get married, or if their boyfriend is in love with them. That's not what I do. A discovery call is just to find out what it is that the client wants to address, and can I help them, and how do I feel about working with them? Because there are some people that I'm not going to resonate with. There are some people who might want to work with me, but I don't think I can help them. And I would rather them find somebody that is going to be able to help them than to spend thousands of dollars working with me and not getting the help that they really need. So that's what a discovery call is. The sessions are the healing sessions, and they last about 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the client's energy. They usually start off around 30 minutes, and then the longer we work together, the longer they are, because they're opening up more to what they want to release. they're open more to letting go of things. And so we can find deeper roots, we can find more things to clear. And yeah, and I have several different packages that, and the packages can be used for family members as well. There's not just for one person. You get a package of 12. I can use it to work on you, your kids, your spouse, whatever. The healing sessions are done either over the phone, over Zoom, and I can also do them over email, because energy is expansive. Everything is energy, and energy is everything. And so we don't have to be in the same room. We don't even have to see each other. I don't even need to know what the person looks like. All I need is a name, sometimes an age, and I can get in tune with their energy.
So I'm listening to all of this, and there's fascination, of course, and there's also a belief that I have that we are all here with a significant purpose, a significant intention, a significant role that we play in this life. So I guess my question would be, what is the goal and the intention of energy healing? So a two-parter. So I'll give you this first part, and then I'll give you the second
Okay.
part after. Yeah. So, what is the goal and the intention of energy healing, especially as it relates to someone that is here maybe to have this big purpose in this lifetime? How do you help to support them on that journey in particular, as opposed to, I think sometimes with healing, when we hear it, it's, oh, I want to get rid of all of these negative things, not recognizing that some of these negative things that we claim to be negative are essential to who we are.
Mhm.
So how do you maintain, okay, I said I'd wait for the second parter. What is the goal and intention of energy healing?
For me, the goal and intention of energy healing is to help free up space. It's basically defragmenting your computer, defragmenting your hard drive, so that you can bring more things, more positive things into it, to work towards your purpose, to continue living your purpose. I think everybody's purpose is so different.
Right.
But I think at the core, at the foundation, I think our purpose is just to find happiness within the life that we're living.
Okay. And what does that mean, to find happiness?
It means being happy, not being happy, but understanding that the flat tire you get on the way to work is just a flat tire. You can look at it from two different perspectives. You can look at, oh my gosh, this flat tire, it's going to make me late for work. It's going to cost me $300 to get it repaired. You can look at it from that perspective. Or you can turn around and go, oh, maybe there was an accident that was going to happen up ahead, and this flat tire saved me from getting into that accident. Or you meet the AAA driver and you have a wonderful conversation, and you had that flat tire because he needed to hear something that you had to say.
Mm, interesting. So how would you, in your process, maintain the integrity of that person that is sitting in front of you? Like, how do you know what the integrity of that person is? Because most times when people come to other people for support, they don't even know who they're meant to be, or where they're supposed to be going, or what they're supposed to be doing. So how do you maintain that and at the same time provide them with the support that they need?
Well, during the sessions, we talk a lot about what is it that they enjoy? What is it that they gravitate towards that gives them pleasure or peace or calmness? And then we go from there. The goal of energy work is not to change who the person is. It's to help them to expand on the wonderful things that are hiding inside of them. That all of these negative experiences that they've had to go through and deal with, how have they prepared them for where they are in this moment? And how can they use those lessons to thrive, to see that, yes, I got a flat tire and it's okay. Like, it's just a flat tire.
You are doing energy decluttering. So, yeah, I'm very into it. Okay, so the minimalists, right? They talk about all that remains. And I love that, all that remains, because uh if you go through, if you've got a living room that is designed for living, so it's designed for hanging out, spending time together, doing activities that you like in that room, but it's full of boxes of things, uh, you can't do your living in your living room when it's full of boxes of things. And when you see your living room full of boxes and things, there's so much shame that goes with that. There's so much like regret that can go with that. There's like, oh, I shouldn't have bought that thing. Well, I can't get rid of it because I spent money on it, all of this. And so the idea of, well, what do you want it to look like can feel really, really overwhelming because it's like, I don't know, all of this stuff is in my living room. So going, okay, well, what is the end goal can be extremely overwhelming. Whereas if we're identifying, like, okay, when I walk into that living room, I can't sit down in my chair because there's these boxes on this chair, or there's all this stuff on this chair, and there's no room to like move it to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a burr. Like that's a stumbling block. That's
Yeah.
a barrier to being able to do what I'm supposed to be able to do with that chair, which is sit down. So when I go through those, it was also reminding me of the KonMari method, because a lot of people thought the KonMari method was very out there because it's talking about thanking our things and, having emotions with our things. And we all have emotions with our things. And a big part of that is detaching that emotion from the thing, recognizing that, yeah, that thing was helpful to me once. And I can appreciate that that thing was helpful to me once, and I can still let that go.
Right.
And so what you're talking about here with energy decluttering is really going like, yeah, it was very, very helpful to me to not talk back to my parents when I had a difference of opinion. So if they were saying something and I disagreed with it, it was extremely helpful for me to not say that I disagreed. It was very helpful to me to say that I do agree, right? Because it kept me more emotionally safe or physically safe or whatever the situation was. So I can pick up that diaper bag from when my daughter was born and say, this was super helpful to me, right? Like I carried a lot of diapers in that, and I, brought it up to this and that. And it was great because I always had snacks packed in there for her. But now she's 8 and I don't carry diapers anymore.
Right.
So now it's stopping me from sitting in that chair in my living room and enjoying my living room the way that I want to or need to. I gotta let that go. I gotta find a way to release that. And in KonMari method, a lot of that is I have to be able to experience the appreciation for the fact that that was helpful to me at that time so that I can let it go. And because acknowledging that it was helpful for me at that time does both purposes. It also makes me acknowledge the reality that it's not helpful to me now. And so now I can let it go. And so all that remains after we do that process, we go through all of the burrs or the clutter that's on the chair, and we go, is this helpful to me now? And in KonMari, it's does this spark joy, right? So there's an energy component to it. How do I feel when this is around? If it's a shirt that's too small for me, how do I feel when I see that and hold it? I feel terrible, right? So I don't need that in my day-to-day life. It's a burr, it's a stumbling block.
Right.
And once I clear all of that out, all that remains is the essence of who we are and what our purpose is and who we are supposed to be, because we've gotten rid of all of that clutter that was in the way of that. So I've been sitting here thinking about it. It's like, you're doing emotional decluttering. I love it because I love decluttering. And it's that detachment. It sounds like detachment from the material world, right? When we say, oh, I'm decluttering, it feels like I'm taking my emotions away from, what I have, that I'm like, oh, I don't need this cup anymore, right? It feels like on the surface, I'm taking my emotions away from that. But really what I'm doing is leaning into my emotions and allowing myself to feel, because I might feel I'm supposed to like this, right? Like this is a cup of my favorite movie. I'm supposed to like that, and I don't like it, and I never pick it up out of my cabinet, right? And it allows us to say, yeah, I'm allowed to not like that thing. I'm allowed to not have to still feel this way. I'm allowed to let it go. So I love it.
I do too.
I think it's awesome. Awesome. Well, so if you could give one suggestion, because there is a lot of stigma around, there's a lot of stigma around counseling. There's a lot of stigma around energy healing, right? A lot of people think like, this is nonsense, right? Or like, what is this? I don't understand it. So what if somebody is maybe on the fence about starting energy healing, but they're like, I don't know, like I'm out of my element with it, right? I don't know what I'm doing. What suggestion might you give that person?
I would say, just talk to some energy healers and find out what is the kind of work that they do. Like I said, there are so many different types of energy work out there. And what I do may not resonate with somebody else, but what with one of my friends, what they do, it might resonate. So interview energy workers and find out who you resonate with. What do you resonate with? There are energy workers who work with entities and, other things that another one might not work with. And if you don't believe in that stuff, they might not be the right practitioner for you. And I would say the same thing for counselors. Interview who you're going to work with. Interview who you're going to trust and be vulnerable with. I want people to feel safe with whoever they're working with. And so I think interviewing is a huge first step.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is very interesting to hear about. And if anyone listening is interested in learning more, you can find Tina on designyourexistence.com or at Design Your Existence on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well to reach out to learn more.
I'm Tina Eichenberg, and I need a counselor.
And I'm Krista Hunt.
I'm Carell Richards.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
That's right.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236.